Hey guys, so this is just a new idea I thought might be kind of fun. I'm just going to do my own fan commentary on the Wallace and Gromit shorts. Now I can't actually show you the Wallace and Gromit shorts here on YouTube. I imagine they'd be taken down pretty quickly if I did that. So you're going to have to go and find a feed online, or if you've got it on DVD or Blu-ray, just stick it in and start playing it for yourself. So I'm watching it on Netflix. So I don't know if you're in the same country as me, you can probably find it on Netflix yourself. So I'm just going to hit play now. And I'm seeing the Yardman logo right now. And it is ending now. So now it's faded to black. And now the music's kicked in. So you should be seeing a grande out on screen now. So that should be enough, I think, to ensure that you've synced up with me. Okay, so there is the iconic music of Wallace and Gromit being heard for the first time. Very short, actually, rendition of it. Not the full theme, and you don't actually see the main characters in that opening, I notice. I'm not seeing it in this opening shot either. Just looking at brochures to go away on vacation. Ski. Is that the ski yogurt logo that they're using on that brochure? What if they asked their permission for that? So yeah, a bit of background. This actually took 6 years for Nick Park to complete this, because he was basically doing it on his own. He asked Peter Salas, who I imagine was probably already fairly well known for Last of the Summer Wine at the time, to just record some lines back in the early 80s, and then he phoned him up 6 years later to say, oh, I finished it. And there is the iconic voice of Wallace being heard for the first time. Ooh, it looks a bit different, actually, from what you know now. Obviously, animation is just not as slick as you're used to from the Wallace and Gromit shorts now. Oh god, they even put like the coffee stains on the tray. The attention to detail for something like this, it's just amazing. And those are clearly the Jacobs cream crackers packaging that he's got on the crackers there. And there's no logo or anything. I think he made this for the BBC, which have this policy of no advertising. But that's clearly the logo they're using there. So no cheese in the fridge. He's got a lot on that tray, considering how small it is. Full plate of crackers, tea. Who eats crackers with tea, though? Crackers are like a savoury biscuit. You'd want sweet biscuits with tea, wouldn't you? Oh, well. And there he is saying cheese. Well, I don't think that's saying cheese for the first time, but the way he said it is sort of the iconic Wallace way of saying it. And he just happens to have a brochure next to him for cheese holidays. Where would you go for cheese holidays? I mean, obviously they go to the moon, but where else could you go? Well, I suppose France is sort of known for its cheese, isn't it? I love that transition as well. That's so good. And they have a big house, actually, considering it's just the two of them. I never liked the design of those rats, actually. They look kind of alien to me, almost. Maybe that's a bit of foreshadowing. Yeah, the size of this basement. And also in Britain, we tend to not really have basements. We have attics. So this is kind of strange that they have an attic, a basement even, with this amount of space. So yeah, Wallace, his head just doesn't look quite right in this one. He sort of touched up the top of his head into the later versions. It's a very big pencil he's got. And it's just sort of the amazing way it draws you in this short, with just him doing sort of mundane things like drawing a picture of a rocket like this and thinking it through. It doesn't seem very important. Why is this an important thing for us to be seeing or watching? But it's just, the animation on it is just, it draws you in. Like, you can't even see what he's drawing, but just the way that his expressions are being shown here, it's amazing. And now you can see what he's drawing, of course. And that really looks like a human hand. The way that that's moving, and obviously, you can see the fingerprints on it and everything. So, but that looks like a real pencil drawing. I mean, imagine they did sort of dry run to that with actual hands and actual pencils drawing on a bit of paper or something. I love this bit as well. He continues to try and saw, even though it's obviously just not going to work. Yeah, and it just, again, an early indication into sort of Wallace's character. He doesn't quite think things through, even though he's obviously quite ambitious with the things that he does. And Gromit, of course, just goes along with it because, when you're mute, what else are you supposed to do? It's a very good sort of window into it early on. Gromit didn't have to do that. He was quite within his rights and within his power to refuse to do something like that, but he just goes along with it. Again, very good sort of early establishing of this kind of relationship that they have. Could have just asked Wallace to stop soaring right there, but he's not bothered. He's just willing to go along with the things Wallace wants him to do. This is another scene that I thought just, it looked real almost. The drilling through there. That one I never thought looked quite as good. And this is another sort of great moment, which is sort of they play sort of homage to it in a close shave, actually, when Preston grabs hold of the wings on the plane. And also, Gromit actually makes a sort of slight noise there as well. There's a little bit of a grunt or a moan as he flies off. And then, of course, the early establishing of just the way that this world works, of just, this kind of thing is just going to work. He just builds a rocket in his basement, and it just does work. That's just the way that things are. Now, behaving like an actual sort of dog, I suppose, in that little scene there where he's petting him. I'm not sure if the design of that rocket's modelled on any specific rocket from fiction or anything. But, obviously man had been to the moon by this point, so we knew what actual rockets looked like, and they didn't look like that. So, they had some sort of basis for the sort of techno-babble sort of things that they had to do in order for this to work. But, they sort of, disregard a lot of it because that is the sort of world that this is set in. They go onto the moon in just their normal clothes, no suits or anything. The interior of the rocket is just a sort of house-like setting. It's like the living room. And apparently Gromit originally did have a voice, but they decided, obviously, for the better, just not to give him one because it was actually much more interesting for him to express himself through his expressions. And it also sort of helps sort of play him up as like the straight character. And then Wallace, can be just sort of the numpty, the fool, essentially. Very big box of magic. This is the thing I noticed actually throughout these Wallace and Gromit things. The everyday sort of items they use, they're just a little bit bigger than you'd expect them to be. So I suppose, as a more clear indication to the audience of what Wallace is actually doing a lot of the time. And of course, that is not true to reality. They don't just light a fuse, like it's a bomb with an actual rocket, and then they would not use an alarm clock, of course, either. It's funny how that's one of the last things Wallace thinks of, to actually open up the hatch so that, they can actually get out. That would have been pretty disastrous if we forgot that. Considering he's already lit the fuse. And at this point, I don't know, the first time I watched this as a kid, I'm like, what is he thinking about now, suddenly? And I never quite understood as a child why this was such an urgency, I mean, even Gromit looks kind of worried, even though I didn't think he's really all that bothered, to be honest. I mean, based on the sort of character that Gromit is, with him just sort of going along with everything Wallace thinks. I suppose the thing he's worried about is he's worried now, because he knows that Wallace is going to have to go and get them, he's worried he's not going to get back in time. And he's certainly got a lot of them, considering he's in such a massive rush. And I don't quite know how he got up the ladder with all those crackers in his arms. But again, that is sort of the early establishing of the kind of world that this is, that this kind of thing will just happen. Yeah, so see, those rats look a bit better. I don't remember them looking like that in the earlier shot we had of them. And neither of them have really braced themselves in any particular way. Wallace is literally just standing up. I love this bit though, putting on the sunglasses. And apparently, also, this is a world where, a rocket won't take off if you leave the handbrake on. I mean, of course, that's to a lot of adults watching this, that's quite a relatable sort of mistake. I've done it myself. I actually, one time, tried to turn the fans on in my car because it was iced up in the morning, and I had not only forgotten to put the handbrake on when I parked it the night before, but I had left the gear stick in first, so, of course, went shooting forward into a hedge. And, of course, in reality, the rocket would have to go around Earth before it could head for the moon. But I guess, yeah, they just head straight forward. I mean, I suppose it's not exactly clear exactly how long this takes them. And again, these playing cards, Gromit even has got here, they look a lot bigger than they should be, I think. There's an interesting frame to pause on, read those headlines. Imagine, a rocket going to the moon, having a smooth enough flight that you can build a house of cards. And, just a sort of house-like setting that they have, incredibly, quiet, smooth flight to the moon. Why can't it be like that in real life, you wonder? Maybe in 100 years or so it will be. I'm not entirely sure what's supposed to be happening here. Because did the rocket make that noise just because the toast was ready? Something I don't know. And again, that knife looks a bit bigger than it should be. I'll stop harping on about that now. And you expect the House of Cards to collapse right there when that sort of alert goes off, but no. Gromit was unfazed. And the moon looks very yellow. Doesn't look like that in real life, of course. It's interestingly, this was made exactly 20 years on from the moon landing. Is that an instruction he's giving? Or no, it can't be, because Gromit's busy building his house of cards. I don't quite know why Gromit's chosen this point, right as they're about to land, to build a house of cards. But there you go. Now that actually does sort of look like the moon. It's more sort of yellowy than I think you see it in most of the pictures. But the actual sort of physical structure of it, again, another sort of bit of illogic here of, they can walk on the moon perfectly fine, but if it kicks a ball in the air, it still just flies away. Or goes into orbit, I guess. Don't need spacesuits or anything like that, Again, this is just the way that things work. And, of course, I guess we're supposed to assume that the moon in this world actually is made of cheese. He doesn't butter the cracker, yeah. Yeah, because, if the moon was actually made of rock, you would not be able to do that, would you? And bite into it. So, Wallace is not sort of thinking to himself, this isn't cheese. He's just sort of thinking it's a different kind of cheese. Moon cheese, I guess. I don't know why he would think it was Stilton. Of course, that's... I think that's the first time he says Wensleydale as well, which is also kind of an iconic Wallace line. But why would he think it was Stilton? There's no blue in it. Gromit does not even get the chance to try some of his cheese. And here we have the other character. There's only 3 characters in this. Of course, only one of them talks, so there's only one actor in the whole of this thing. But yeah, here's the other character. I'm not actually sure if it has a name. I think is it the robot or the stove or the cooker? I think the cooker. I think I heard somebody call it once. And at this point, we think it's just a machine. Wallace, of course, thinks it's like a vending machine of some sort, or maybe like a fruit machine. And like a lot of those kind of vending machines or fruit machines, they do just steal your money. But in reality, it just took a moment to respond. They've already walked off by the time it comes to life. It's interesting it's got no legs, because the moon it's not exactly a completely flat terrain, so that doesn't seem very practical for something that lives on the moon. And its eye is sort of down by its waist, or sort of waist height, maybe. But it's got a very large pocket, and when it needs to move, it can just put its arms away. So there's some practicalities, I suppose, to it. But yeah, what the heck would it do if it fell over? Would it be able to self-right itself? I suppose it does have arms. But yeah, the idea of not having legs on something like the moon, that does seem strange to me. Oh, and that ski brochure that I commented on earlier, that actually comes back. I'd forgotten about that. And this is quite creative as well. I don't think I'd seen this before. Expressing, I suppose you've seen it in comics, don't you? But not seen it in animation before, expressing a character's thoughts through an actual thought bubble. I wonder if that's like a sort of dream that the cooker has had for a while, and that brochure was just sort of reminding it of it. I wondered, does that mean it's been to Earth before, and it would like to go back at some point? And it scratches the top of its head like a person would do, even though it's a robot. Well, no, I suppose some kind of robot thing. I think humans must have been. It's either been to Earth before, or humans have been here before. Because how else does it have superglue? I mean, how did it even get here in the first place? And I like the attention to detail that you can see its little dial with the price on it going down as time progresses. Look, it's at 5p now. So half its time has expired. And it's giving a parking ticket for some strange reason. I'm not quite sure why. And I don't know, does that become relevant later? The fact that it's leaking fuel? Because the rocket does actually take off perfectly fine later on. Oop, spoilers. I'm assuming anybody watching this has seen this before. Again, he's done much the same thing. He's found just a small little lump in the moon for him to be able to taste. And the cooker's not happy, I guess. Again, where did he get the rounders back from? I didn't really understand what that was when I saw this as a child. I thought maybe he was gonna I thought maybe it was a bottle, actually. And rather than just sort of slicing him across the head, like I think you would do in real life if you wanted to hit someone with a bat, he's gonna hit him on the top of the head. Kind of interesting. And it actually didn't matter that the cooker's time expired, because Wallace gets hit on the head anyway. And then why does Wallace put more money in it? I mean, he takes the bat away, so I suppose it's possible that he thinks that's like a prize or something, but I don't know, does that mean he wants another prize? Well, he's not waiting around to receive another prize. Yeah, strange. But of course, we need Wallace to put more money in the cooker, in order to further the plot. So Wallace obviously likes the cheese that he's got from the moon, because he's taking a lot of it home with him. And now the cooker suddenly has malicious intentions, we believe. But perhaps he is trying to steal the cheese. Well, he doesn't really need to steal the cheese from the moon. He just because he lives on the moon, he's got plenty of that. I think that's what Wallace is worried about. It's illogical, since, why would something that lives on the moon want to steal just the small amount of cheese that he's taken? Yeah, you do sort of wonder, actually, what are the cooker's intentions here? Obviously, I suppose he wants to go to Earth, because, that's why he has his, skiing fantasy. But does he have any kind of other sort of evil intentions, I wonder? Like there, I suppose he's sort of realizing he can't see properly because it's dark in there, which is, I guess, why he then lights these matches. And it makes sense for the matches to be there, of course, because Wallace needs them to light the fuse. I love that little noise Wallace makes there. He's quite distraught, like a little girl or something. And again, it's sort of unclear exactly what happened there. Did he just throw it into the fuel tank or something? The fuel tank's leaking though. Maybe it wasn't leaking fuel. Maybe it was just leaking oil. Yeah, that doesn't seem to become relevant because again, the rocket takes off perfectly fine. And in the end, perhaps sort of a window into Wallace and Gromit's characters not being fully established as to what Nick Park sort of thought that they were at that point. You'd think if they made Grundy out now, he would have had Wallace and Gromit actually help out the cooker in some sort of way. Whereas here, they just sort of run away and observe him being a bit cross that he's not been able to get onto the rocket to go to Earth. And it's just through, chance that he has this epiphany that I could just use these as skis. And I love this sequence as well. This is just a wonderful little sequence to watch on its own. And again, the iconic music kicks in. And I suppose, this is important to sort of show that, there are no hard feelings between them. Because he gives them a wave. And, these sort of massive ski hills. Oh, I couldn't quite get up that one. I love it. Oh, and that sort of somersault he does as well. So it's lovely, sort of fits in with the music perfectly. Now, what is that cheese he's eating? Is that moon cheese? That looks more like cheddar, actually. And another cheese magazine, Cheese Monthly. There's probably magazines like that exist in real life, actually, now I think about it. And there you go. That is the very first Wallace and Gromit short, A Grand Day Out. It's interesting, actually, to see how many people worked on this, because obviously there's only one actor. But probably a decent number of animators. Nick Park worked on most of it on his own. But he did get help later on. Yeah, it's a decent number of names. All being given sort of very sort of ambiguous or unclear kind of credits of just, special thanks. And obviously someone would have had to have composed the music and the sound effects. Of course, nowadays, there's a lot of voice actors employed just to make sounds. Even for characters that, don't technically speak. And there's the one actor credit. And there's the ball still floating away.